Hello, everybody. It is 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We are coming to you here from Bloomington, Indiana, from Luley Hall. We are the Red Pill, Blue Pill virtual reality team here in Kadi Bonner's lab. And we're going to start with a quick round of introductions here right away. You will see that we are joined here online by Catherine Qing, who's joining us from the West Coast, from Stanford. All right, so let me bring up the slides here. Go. And before we start, I have to emphasize that this is, a studio setup, and we are trying our best. Okay, we're trying our best, but first and foremost, we're trying to have fun. So this is the 1 hour session about the VR organ gallery. It goes by a few names: the HOA organ gallery, the VR gallery, the CCF organ gallery. And yeah, here is the team. And in a second, everybody here is going to get a chance to introduce themselves properly. You can see that this is kind of the logo of our virtual reality organ gallery. You can see a user in virtual reality here. And then you can also see a human body here on the right side. All right, so what are we going to do in this 1 hour? We have 10 minutes of intro and virtual reality banter. Of course, we work on the organ gallery, but we are also VR enthusiasts and computing enthusiasts in general. As you can see, the average age here is pretty low. We are all either students or early career faculty, and so we're just going to want to introduce ourselves and our joy in VR development. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the VR organ gallery. We're going to give a little bit of an overview of where it came from, what it's supposed to solve, what issues it's supposed to address, and how we are developing it. Then we're going to have a 10-minute demo. And again, this is a virtual reality demo, and VR demos tend to always be a little bit, there's unexpected things happening at times, so please bear with us. And then we're going to do a 20 minutes a deep tech dive. So nerds are very welcome. This is going to be we're going to actually look at code, we're going to look at the Unity project, and we're going to have a deeper look at how the organ gallery is being built. All right, so this is the entire team. You can see here our amazing researchers here on the right side with the names, but everybody's going to get a chance to introduce themselves in a second. I also deeply, deeply, deeply want to thank Kadi Bonner for her support of our team. And again, we are the Red Pill, Blue Pill team. This is a not so subtle reference to the Matrix. All right, so my name is Andy. I'm the research lead here in Kadi's lab. I did my PhD on data visualization and virtual reality. And I'm extremely excited to be here in the studio today. All right, next up is Catherine, who joins us remotely from Stanford University.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Catherine. Thank you, Andy, for the intro. I graduated from IU in May, actually, with a bachelor's in psychology and informatics, and now I'm doing my master's at Stanford, but I'm still really happy to be a part of the Red Pill, Blue Pill team. And yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what excited me about virtual reality and the first thing that made me kind of get into virtual reality. So with the background in psychology, I've always been interested in clinical psychology. And so finding out that virtual reality has applications in clinical psychology settings, specifically in therapy, was really, really interesting to me. VR technologies are a really interesting alternative to the standard exposure in social phobia. So a lot of times in social phobia treatment, people will do cognitive behavioral therapy, but there's a lot of potential in VR technologies as well. So there was a specific paper that I read. I linked it here, but by Klinger and colleagues in 2005, and essentially they used virtual reality therapy based on exposure to virtual environments to treat social phobia. And so essentially they had virtual environments recreated for 4 different social anxiety situations. And the picture that you see on the right here is one demonstrating an assessment situation. So it's one of the 4 social anxiety situations that usually causes a lot of stress. So and the treatment lasted 12 weeks, and essentially they did find that this virtual reality therapy led to statistically and clinically significant improvement in people's social phobia. And they also compared it to cognitive behavioral therapy. And although the differences between the two different types of therapy were trivial, it's still a very promising finding showing that virtual reality does have a lot of potential to be used in these applications. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for this introduction and in typical fashion, citing a paper and telling us really cool things about it. Thanks so much, Catherine. All right, next up is Shefali right next to me here.
Thank you so much, Andy. So today, my name is Shefali Luley, and I have a background in electronics engineering, and currently I'm pursuing my master's in data science from IUB. I came in to know about virtual reality when I tried to figure out more about data visualization in data science. And I really came across various tools like Power BI, Excel, and Tableau, which mostly focuses on data visualization. But I never thought of virtual reality could be imbibed in that, and it would be really so cool. So here is one of the videos which showcase data visualizations and Power BI dashboards in VR and how they can be more interactive and helpful in terms of specifying it to a client or a market. Along with that, I am really a person who likes to read. So I came across ASD, like the autism spectrum disorder, in one of my subjects for a lecture. And I really found it interesting in terms of how there is a difference in terms of a typical brain development and a development for people who are having ASD. Like they have few sorts of disabilities, but they can still have a normal life to it. So one of the things which I really found interesting for that in VR is like they had a research team which worked on creating VR related brain representation of ASD people, and they could actually identify like the different rapid growths and patterns observed between them. And the theory was basically done with the help of a 7-year-old boy who had ASD, and how and what kind of problems they did face. Also, the researchers did try to create a gamified application, which will be helpful for them since they have a lot of issues related to sedentary activities and basically communicating with people and social interactions. But these are the few things which really got me into VR, and I've really found them interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shefali. I'm especially enamored with that kind of like Tony Stark, Iron Man style data visualization view at the top. I think most of us, when we think of VR and data, that's kind of what we envision. Thank you. This is great. One question, is this actually already possible with Power BI, or is this like a concept?
Yeah, I think it is possible with Power BI. Like they did try to implement it. I'm not sure how largely it's been used in today, but I think it is possible in Power BI.
Okay, cool. We gotta check that out in one of our next stand-ups. Thank you so much, Shefali. All right, next up is Yash.
Hello, everyone. My name's Yash. I have a background in computer engineering, and I'm currently pursuing my computer science master's at Luley. I am also a graduate assistant, like research assistant at CNS, and I work under Andy in the Red Pill Blue Pill team. There is an age-old question and an argument against it that whether computer mice and keyboards are better than a joystick or a controller for shooting games versus racing games. And to that, I answer that I guess they're better done in VR, like shooting and racing as well. Like you can do it better in VR. Virtual reality, the main allure of it to me has always been that you can always change the way you input or interact with the environment in it, and that's what really got me into it. There have been other occasions like medical help that can be provided with virtual reality, like for acrophobia, but the main focus for me has always been how you can always interact with your environment in a more immersive and intuitive manner than just using like a particular, like a rock solid computer peripheral. And with that, I think I'm good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so what it made me think of is, there's the computer mouse, which has been around for 60 years. And now, whereas, we have all of these amazing controllers that are way more natural, why do you think the computer mouse is still so popular versus, all of these more advanced input devices?
Okay, so the thing about computer mice is they were brought into popularity with operating systems and computers using certain games like solitaire, which people would pay for fun but didn't realize that they were getting into the habit of clicking and tracking and getting used to those input modes. Similarly, Beat Saber is a game for virtual reality. It kind of allows you. It's like the solitaire for a computer mouse. It's just that we haven't realized or actualized that we are actually capable of this natural intuitive input through controllers, whereas we had to be trained for that using solitaire and computer mice.
Can I add something to that? I believe like you made a very good point about saying intuitive input. I would just like to add that it is also an intuitive feedback mechanism which you get from a mouse, seeing it move close to 1-to-1 ratio on your screen. So it makes sense to have like a shooting game when you're playing on a screen to have an input from mouse because it's a very relatable and a quick feedback and it's easy for your brain to map it. Versus like a controller where you have to train your mind to the sensitivity of the controller and stuff like which direction you need to put. Again, for VR, it takes it on the next level. The feedback is instantaneous. It's really 1-to-1 scale. It's not on screen. It's like the human scale, which you've learned which you've grown up learning since you were a baby. And that's why I feel that it's more intuitive. That's nice.
That's the human-computer interaction designer over there. Naval is going to introduce himself here in just a second. Thank you so much, Yash. All right, next up is Riley.
I've been out here at the clock tower.
If you wouldn't mind. Greetings, I'm Riley Halloran. I am a Unity developer for the team and an undergraduate at IU, double majoring in computer science and game design. And you stole my freaking point. I can't believe you. I was gonna go into controller input. I've got some.
Go again. We like controllers.
I've got some things to add, but first and foremost, I guess what brought me to the team was games have infinite potential to create environments and simulate reality, that's been an avenue that game developers have been traversing down, especially in the quest to create more and more realistic games. And VR is this crazy new development that we've thought about, but it truly does let you experience it like no other. The amount of games that are now going back and adding VR to them and bringing in a whole new audience is really astounding. But to me, the more interesting part is all the new possibilities of control and creativity. So one thing that is interesting is in my studies, it's often been argued that not only is it the platform and the hardware that limit or kind of influence what type of games get made, but the mode of input is very integral. So you were talking earlier about VR and the intuitiveness and the one-to-one. I would say that you can see that earlier in game development with the development of the Wii. The Wii is essentially the prototype controller, and what the Wii did is you boot up a Wii Sports, you're playing bowling in an intuitive manner where it's like, I know how to bowl, and we saw what happened there, where it was one of the most popular systems of all time, and it had broad appeal, not only in just the hardcore gamer market, but across children, senior citizens, everyone in between, and controls really do influence the ways and modes in which you can interact. And a great example is this new game that came out in 2020, The Last Clockwinder. I'm just gonna do the pitch here. It's this crazy game where you actually turn yourself into a factory. you move around in a virtual reality world, and you have your hands that you can essentially program to complete the same action over and over again. And then you build robots that follow those recorded inputs, and you essentially build a human factory of automatons with yourself. And it's developments like these that just make me so excited for the future of VR, not only as a new shiny code to put games into, but as whole new ways to interact, experience, and perceive.
Thanks, right, for bringing up like a concrete example. It seems to me like one of the points about, and we're already getting into discussion here, but I think that's a good thing, because it's relevant eventually for the organ gallery. VR offers less what I like to call input abstraction. So if you play a video game with a controller, and let's say you go to a chest, and then you press a button, and then the chest opens, and then you grab it, there's all of this action happening, just abstracted into a button press. Mm-hmm. In VR, there's no, I mean, there could be a button press, but just as well, you could just like have to bend down, grab the chest, lift it up. You have way less abstraction. It's a lot more concrete input. And it seems to me like this game is a prime example of that. You have to do all of these things in a concrete manner, and then these robots come and like do it one by one.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting. We're still at the start of VR development and technology. So like seeing all the different crazy ways that you can map human inputs into 3D environment with hands or any other method. It's I love to see creative, new out of the box ideas that I haven't seen before. Yeah. While there's something to be said about developing and building on top of previous work, I think there's just so much like possibility and creativity that, and I think our project is a great example of it.
Yeah, it's beautiful to have also a game designer on board who is very much in tune with the latest game. Like most of us only know video games through playing them, and you actually develop them, so that's awesome. Thanks so much, Riley. All right, next up here is Naval.
Hello, my name is Naval Pandey. So my flirtations with virtual reality started long back. I'm currently pursuing my master's in human-computer interaction, and my bachelor's is in architecture. So I worked as an architect for 4 years, and I used to do a lot of 3D modeling. So one of my first interactions with virtual reality was trying to import my 3D model of a home and trying to see it in Google Cardboard. So there's an app called Interchangeables. You upload your 3D model and you could see it in Google Cardboard. I was fascinated by it, but I did not pursue it. And I just want to play this small video. This is what really hooked me to virtual reality, and the reason why I came to do like an interaction design course in US, because I want to design interactions and experiences for virtual reality. Let's see this. I think
it's playing already here.
Oh yeah, it's mind-blowing. Like, it's a mixed reality application, but like Andy has told us multiple times, it's a reality-virtuality continuum. So I believe that eventually these are the works we are doing right now and the mixed reality works would merge into one, like, unified metaverse, and yeah.
Of course, it's also extremely slick. I mean, this is
one
of the
yeah.
videos.
this is, and like, this is like, I believe like this is where virtuality will flourish the most. Like its pervasiveness, and when we embed it into like these everyday objects, and yes, we would still need like a lens or glasses to see these things, but I think that's where the future would lead us. And coming on next, one of my like all-time favorite games is Half-Life Alyx. It's really sad that I can't play it for more than like 40 minutes. And that's, if any of you have played it, that's a huge flex. Like, it's really hard to play it for more than 20 minutes.
I think I literally lasted 10 minutes and then I got into it. And then I also ran into a wall. So, yeah. It's a really fun game.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I got about 25 minutes locked out of mine, but it was because I got too scared. Like I love Half-Life, but I can't get past the zombies. And if that's in VR, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I know, but again, I was like attracted by its like UI interactions, how it allows us to change weapons. Of course, the aiming mechanism, it's been done a lot of times in many different VR games, but just the navigating through the menu, changing. And if you guys have seen that, those like health gloves and those gravity gloves, they're like really awesome. Yeah, and I hope to do like more of like UX development in VR in the future. That's my goal.
That is wonderful points that you raised. What I liked especially was you mentioned embedding virtual reality or augmented reality in everyday objects. So what we see here in this video that you put on the slide is a classic application of augmented reality.
Yeah.
My personal creed is that augmented reality has the bigger everyday ramifications. You know, think of in classic case, like imagine a burning building, a firefighter running in and seeing supposed outlines of victims, for example. Or in this case, for example, something a lot more innocent. You're just looking at a credit card, looking at an object and seeing embedded data. Like embedded data, though, is all in the word already. One thing that always strikes me about these AR demonstrations is they all look amazingly sleek.
True.
But then you ask yourself, okay, if I wanted to implement this, the next thing is, well, how would they actually be able to see this content? They would have to have a head-mounted device, or there would have to be some kind of projection. We don't have that kind of projection yet. And the head-mounted devices that we currently have, if you've used one of those before, they are insanely expensive if they're any good, and impractical in everyday situations.
True.
But yeah, what you bring up here is, that would be a prime example of really useful AR. And then you could enrich it with data visualizations too.
The way I see it, like, I compare it to like old telephones, like big telephones, which were like 4 inches wide, 10 inches long, and you have to hold them like, and then eventually you have these sleek headphones who have much more functionality, and like, that's how I see them. Like, in future, we will have those devices which can support those interactions. Hopefully.
Or, maybe it's a setup where, like let's say with your earpods, earpods now do way more than just play sound for you. You can use them as input devices. They can, you can use it to interact with a smart agent, like with Siri. They give you subtle hints about your environment. You can use it to blend out your environment or make it transparent. And, maybe in the future, there's a similar situation where you have a really simple, lightweight pair of glasses or contact lenses that connect to your phone. This way smartphones are established, they're not going to go away anytime soon, so we could use those kind of to power small-scale AR devices.
Yeah.
But I see we're getting sidetracked into really amazing territory here. So next up in our list of to-do here for today is to actually get an introduction to the VR organ gallery. And to do that, I'm going to switch to a different slide deck over here. All right. And so this brings me to what we are actually trying to build with the organ gallery. An information-rich virtual environment. This is a concept by Baumann et al. Presented in their paper, is listed here. And an information-rich virtual environment is a realistic virtual environment that is enhanced with the addition of related abstract information. So data that is not spatial, but that is best shown either via text or via 2D visualization. So on the right side, this is an example from their paper. It's very simple. This is what I assume is a human throat. You can see the tongue here. And then you can see all of these text fields that provide additional information in an abstract manner, such as a simple label, the right palatine tonsil. And then it shows some kind of area, I assume, so centimeter squared, although I don't know exactly what this refers to. But so suddenly we have all of these design challenges. Okay, so if we have all of these little information fields, where are they attached? How big should they be? Should they disappear when you're not looking at them? All of these interesting design challenges that open themselves after that. So now let's actually look at the VR organ gallery, which has a few names, also the Human Reference Atlas in 3D VR. So the organ gallery comes out of HubMap, or the Human Biomolecular Atlas program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and other single-cell mapping efforts. It integrates 3 data types for human tissue: spatial, meaning where is a tissue block coming from; biological structure, meaning what kind of anatomical structures, cell types, and biomarkers are associated with it; and then also specimen and clinical metadata, although I will not cover this, or we will not cover this in this session. The code is currently available here on GitHub, And there's a slightly dated preprint that you're welcome to check out. We're going to demonstrate this here live in just a second. So let's briefly talk about the spatial data. So one of the problems is that documenting tissue extraction sites is non-trivial. You can see here a human kidney dissected with special markers. And then you can see that normally when we try to register these kind of tissue blocks, if we're lucky, there's a photo. If we're a little bit lucky, there's going to be a textual description of where the tissue block was coming from. But oftentimes, we have even less than that. And then doing computation over photos or text like this is very hard to do. So our team developed a registration user interface where we have a virtual kidney, which you can see here in B, with a virtual tissue block, which is this little gray block in the top, that allows us then to register a tissue block into a virtual kidney. In this case, this is the visible human kidney, 100 millimeters high, 60 millimeters wide, and 40 millimeters deep. And this allows us then to take registrations from a variety of different efforts and register them all into the same organ. So on the bottom right, you can see the male colon. And so this is the interface that we're actually using. You can see that this is web deployed. Shows the pyramids of a kidney and then a tissue block that is moving this, that can be moved into the kidney here. And then this is the sister interface to it. This is the exploration user interface that allows a user to see all of the tissue blocks that have already been registered, all of them together in their spatial and semantic context. And so this common coordinate framework allows us to 3D register and explore these tissue blocks spatially and semantically across multiple scales. So at the bottom left, you can see this is the HubMap Atlas reference system, the HRA reference system, like the big reference system at the top. And then nested in that is a body reference system that is used for navigation, and we're actually going to see all of these systems here, at least some of them in a second here in VR. And then we go down to the organ level, which again has its own reference system, and then from there on out, we can go all the way down to the cell. Now, going from HubMap to body to organ is pretty well mapped. You will see that actually in VR in a second. But then this is where the holes are starting to appear. And this is where we have to build bridges between these individual scales. Now, briefly for the biological structure, and an important concept here is the concept of linked open data. So the idea that rather than having data behind paywalls or with different licenses or having to email somebody to get it, it's just all available via modern web technologies. And we will see that later demonstrated in VR as well. I'm going to go forward here really quick. All of these models, in this case, this is the lung that you're going to see later in VR. All of these have been custom built with input from medical experts. And they support the registration user interface, the exploration user interface, which we showed you earlier, and also the organ gallery. And you can see that all of these anatomical structures that are inside of this lung have ontology IDs, so we can link them to medical ontologies. And now is actually the part where we get a little bit more technical. All of this is API driven. There is a CCF API procured via HubMap through our team. And there are different endpoints that allow anyone with an internet connection to get this linked open data of the Human Reference Atlas. Specifically here, we're using two endpoints. We're using scene to get all of the 3D objects in the scene, and then the reference organs route to get the sex for each of these organs. And then we can specify what we want with query strings. And then in Unity here, we capture this data in organ data and tissue block data scripts. And then we can use this just like as if it was a video game. So we take the data from the internet, we parse it, we deserialize it, we parse it, and then we assign it into individual property slots on these scripts. And that allows us then to play with this data as if it was in a video game. All right, I think it's time for a demo. So I'm thinking, Kumar, why don't you do us the honor of demonstrating? You can use my headset here. Okay, so bear with us, folks. I'm going to start. Catherine, if you could let us know real quick if you can see. Can you see Google Chrome?
Yeah, well, yeah. I can.
Yeah, you should say MetaQuest here on the top left.
Yes, yeah, I see.
Okay, cool. Okay, can you share real quick?
Yeah, just a minute.
And then we're just gonna, we're gonna get it done.
To your computer, right?
Naval is doing crucial job right here.
Are you, Andy?
Yes.
Are you on?
The computer.
Yeah. Are you on the tab? Because I am sharing it.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
And
Cool.
it's working.
Oh, that's great. So here we have.
All right. I'm just gonna announce here. Oh, actually, yeah, you go. Do it.
No, you can take it away.
All right.
I'm gonna actually reorient myself.
Okay. All right. So while Kumar is reorienting himself, if you can look at the humans here real quick. Here we go. So here we can see the two humans of the common coordinate framework. As you will remember, these are the exact same humans that we saw earlier. Let me go back here to the EUI. That we see here in the exploration user interface. So here we have the two humans, and then here we have the two humans, except this time they are in 3D. So Kumar here can actually now physically walk around them and look into their innards here. I like to think it is almost a little bit like it is extremely realistic when you stand in there and suddenly all of these guts come flying out at you. Here we go. So now Kumar is actually pulling out the organs, which is something that you can very easily do in VR, and it's actually really satisfying. Can you also extrude to the side? Here we go. So now the organs are pulled out by body system. And then if you get closer here, you can also see them, now you can see them individually. So this is that the right kidney of the female? This is the female right kidney. Okay, cool. So yeah, here we see the female right kidney. And can you do you want to say something about the tissue blocks?
They are embedded within the kidney. So each of these tissue blocks is representative of a cross section of the kidney in real life. It has real data of people who have donated their organs. It contains cell type data, their counts, and their distribution throughout this tissue block. So you will see that these tissue blocks are on each organ, and these are registrations that have been made using the prior mentioned RUI that Andy was talking about. There's a lot of these tissue blocks, and you can see that they light up when I hover over them. A later version of our organ gallery is going to feature us being able to pull out these tissue blocks and make registrations or even observe them or save them for later so that we can interact with that data.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kumar. So yeah, this is always the problem, giving VR demos. It would be lovely to just, pull all of you here into VR so that you can see it in 3D also. If you want to turn around really quick to the back and then to the right, to the cortex. There we go. All right, so what you see here is a little preview that we implemented here in virtual reality. If you want to grab that kidney cortex real quick. So this is the cortex of a kidney. And as you can see here, we filled this cortex with cells. Now, two disclaimers. These cells are, of course, way too big to be actual cells. We had to make them bigger so that it would actually be visible to the naked eye. We're also only showing every 42nd thousandth cell. Okay, so we show 3 different cell types here based on one data set from HubMap. So can you actually go into the cortex? Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
So it's, it's kind of like being surrounded by millions of stars.
This is really trippy.
Yeah, it is really trippy. You can see 3 different cell types here. These are 3 colors: podocytes, intercalated duct cells, and I forget what the third cell type is here.
T cells?
Whatever's written on the left side on that sign there. Okay, intercalated in principle, it looks like. So yeah. By the way, we talked earlier about the information-rich virtual environment with the labels. This is a perfect example of one of these labels. All right, now if you want to go to the left and look at this. Finally, this actually allows us to show even proteins in VR. This is a, can you look up real quick to that sign? This is a protein 5W22. I have no idea what that means, but we were pointed to this as a good example of a protein to show in VR. Now, we just downloaded this from this protein data bank, which is linked there, and we could just use it right out of the box. You know, it runs super smooth, like even, as you can see here right now, this is untethered VR. Even so, the frame rate is really good, really acceptable. The lighting looks really cool. And yeah, you can see Kumar here actually diving in there, looking at the protein from all of these different angles. It took me about 2 hours to make the interaction so that the user can move the protein up and down. If you want to move the protein up and down real quick. Yeah, but see how it stays in place. Otherwise, it moves up and down, but it doesn't move sideways. And then you can rotate it into every direction, however. And of course, with Unity being a video game engine, this is just a really useful thing here. All right, so this was our demo of the organ gallery. I would now like to open up the conversation to the team so that we can just kind of talk about the development process of this application and of our VR application in general.
I have a question, Andy. So what exactly did you use that I'm able to grab onto the protein as well as the cortex without it reorienting itself into its normal rotation?
Yeah.
Because I have worked with a similar interactable, and it would always reorient my objects to a particular rotation before letting me grab them again.
Yeah.
So I would like if you could tell me a little more about this.
Thanks, that's actually a great point. This is really going into the development weeds here, but Unity gives us an interaction toolkit that allows us to make specific interactions very easy. Think about a mouse click or think about a button press on a keyboard. If you have ever coded and you had to get user input, it is extremely simple getting these types of inputs because it has to be, because we rely on these inputs all the time. And so Unity has a series of components that we can add to objects to make them interactable, like here. And there is a Boolean called, I think it's called force grab, that automatically resets what you grab into a specific rotation every time. This makes sense, for example, let's say you play a game where you have, let's say, a gun, and you want to grab the gun. It always has to sit in your hand, right? It can't hang there upside down. So that's what this is used for. In this case, of course, we don't want that. We just want the object to stay as it is being grabbed. And yeah, this is one of the advantages of using a video game engine with these native functionalities and support for interaction is we really don't have to code very much here. We can just change a few variables, or change a few. Basically, we just have to set some checkboxes and get some new functionality out of it. Yeah, it is kind of addictive using it like this. All right, so I would actually like to hear a little bit, maybe from you, Riley, about your experience like developing, usually like for video games, but now that you're on our team and developing for HubMap, like developing the body UI, just kind of like what are changes is for you?
So yeah. So for this, normally when we're developing for games, we generally have a system or experience that we want to create for the user. And it's very similar for this project. However, one thing that surprised me is, we're a more academic focused team. We're not trying to make, the next hit video game. So a lot of the sources of like motivation or objectives, we don't really need to focus on those, but we still have a large emphasis on user experience, user feedback, and input, and making sure all of those feel well. And it's especially important in VR when you deal with people who could have potential motion sickness. You have to think a lot about, okay, if I move the user in this way, I know an example for us is we have a button that lets you rotate your perspective by 90 degrees. And I found that really useful because if I was using the headset and I knew my space was limited, or if you imagine you're tethered and you have to rotate, that could get pretty cumbersome. But I know that for some people when we were testing, they would use that button and they'd go, "Oh, my brain's not working anymore. What's happened?" Because the perception of what the world is and the world space has been drastically altered, and they need to take that moment to reorient themselves. So there's, specifically for VR, there's a lot of those things that you have to consider when developing a project like this.
Yes, the disorientation is real, especially as you're developing and suddenly you make yourself motion sick, which happened to me a few times. My next question, Shefali, would be for you. So you come to us from the world of data science.
Yes.
And so you did mention earlier, how awesome it is to actually be able to be inside of data. So with that, where do you think, for what we're building here or what we're trying to build here with the organ gallery, could data visualizations be applied? And where do you see the major challenges?
I think we can apply data visualization to a majority of stuff in VR, but not specifically to all. It cannot be specifically applied to all the domains. A few things are it depends on what kind of data we are handling. It can be like for 2D data, it's more easier for the audience to understand it because it is something similar which has been used like throughout the years. But now when we know there's something which can be done in 3D and it can be so awesome and so cool to maybe relate to, and it gives you more chance to interact with it. It's not something which is like borderlining or stopping you from not interacting with it. So I think it can be used, and in terms of human organ gallery, I think this is really awesome because it will be utilized in our further studies in terms of medicine. Because considering the use of technology and the prior studies, it can be seen like medicine has been an issue, or it has been a research which has been continuous throughout the years. It may be 60 years, it may be 200 years, but it has been there. There has been problems related to health, and I think human organ gallery will help in actually specifying to understand what exactly the organ structure will be like, to give it more accessibility and more hands-on experience for people who are working in medicine.
Yeah, so you're making the point of outreach, reaching out to people that are non-experts, but also that are experts in very specific parts. One feedback that I got from a few people that I talked to, kidney experts, was it would be awesome to just blow the kidney up and go into the kidney. Didn't even think of that. I was just happy that, hey, we can actually see these organs, how big they truly are, but then people want to blow them up immediately. But that's, of course, a unique superpower that you get.
Yeah, because I think like when they say they want to blow up the kidney, it's maybe like because how, like initially we just knew how the kidney is in a structure, in a body diagram, on maybe a 2D level. But like today, you can actually see it, like feel it in person, like how it can be exactly like. Now it's like with every new technology and every new step, people think of, okay, maybe we can try on new thing. So I think that is something which will be really cool. And I think it will be, hopefully be seen in the future as well.
I hope that too. Thanks, Shefali.
Yeah.
So on top of that kidney example, being able to expand the kidney out is something that we can't really do, in real life. I can't, you can dissect a kidney and break it down and like map out the connections on like a pen and paper. But something like this is a great example of like a path we can go down, because once we have all these connections modeled, being able to expand the kidney and see how this system or this part of the kidney interacts all the way over here in a large, essentially blown up data set is something that can be hyper informative, especially for people learning or experts in the field.
Yeah. Also, I would like to add one more thing. So recently, I think maybe a month back, I did some research on the anatomist VR, right? So what I could see was they have like a table, be it like this side, and then you're getting the chance to interact with that body in 3D. So I'm not sure, like how, I'm pretty sure the study is like going on, and there have been a few things related to it. But what I learned from it, like they give the chance for the medical students to actually being able to dissect few organs or try to, interact with them in that table. So I think it's really helpful when, in terms of like if there's an operation and someone really wants to practice before it, or, to have a more clarity on what exactly they are going into. So that is something which will be really useful.
Especially because I imagine, when you do surgery, there are very specific fixed steps that you do every time. And, there are instruments that have to be ready. So testing this in a virtual environment beforehand would be very useful.
There is also literally no upkeep because when you are doing medical procedures on an actual body, you have to have those cadavers ready. While in a virtual reality environment, you do not really have to maintain or salt or even take care of those bodies. There's no maintenance, there's no upkeep. So having a platform or an interface to interact with before actually getting into the real thing would really be economical as well.
Also, these bodies, they don't decay. Like, they're going to be there forever.
And, imagine you're a doctor being able to, we take one of these and essentially make a controller that's a scalpel version of this that you could pick up and then interact with. Or, I know it's a developing field, but using robots or other forms of input to essentially automate surgery or abstract it, where you're a doctor using a gamepad in order to manipulate a robot to do hyper-precision surgery. That's something that you could easily test in a virtual environment with no cost, and is like a very promising future.
Yeah, so you bring up the interesting point of having alternative controllers, and that brings up the question of different types of feedback. So, I'm coming back to the idea of a mouse because we all know what a mouse is. A mouse cannot give you any feedback. The only feedback you get is, if you click on something happen and you see the cursor. But a controller, it can give you vibration feedback. Yeah, they all can already, haptic feedback. It's totally feasible to have. So I recently saw some ads for gloves that can also give you heat and pressure feedback, and that's where it gets really interesting. If you looked at the new PlayStation 5 controllers, they're like almost $200, I think, but they have they have these kind of triggers, and they have resistance. So let's say I keep going back to gunplay, but this is, most of us know what that is. Like if you press it, the trigger will give you it will want back out, it has a spring in it. Yeah. So getting this kind of very detailed feedback, that could be very interesting for surgical simulations. Mm-hmm. So I have a question for Catherine and Naval before we have to wrap up here. So currently you can see that here in the background with these different GIFs out of the organ gallery. Currently, currently, all of these two bodies are just kind of in a void. There's a platform because we need a platform to allow the user to teleport back and forth. But in general, this is kind of dark and empty. How do you think we should place the organ gallery in terms? What kind of environment should we put it in? This is not an issue that we typically have in 2D land. Like if I go back here again to our slideshow, back to the EUI. Here, it's just a black background, okay? So it's like whatever, it's just a black background, and the user doesn't think any more of that. But here, the user can actually look around and find themselves in an environment. So I'm curious now, Naval, Catherine, what do you think how we could make this more interesting?
I think I'm just going to say something really quickly. So
yeah, please.
Earlier, Riley mentioned something about how the research that we do or the work that we do with VR development takes place in an academic setting rather than a commercial setting. But I think that something that's similar in both settings is that your target audience really matters. And so I think that also in determining the virtual environment that these organs or that these bodies are in, is very highly related to who the target audience is, or like who we intend our users to be. So I think that if, for example, this was primarily for educational purposes, that the environment could look very different than if it was intended to be used by like highly specialized scientists and researchers, if that makes sense, or even in like a more medical setting. So yeah, I think that in determining the virtual environment, it first requires us to determine the target user.
I have like a similar opinion. Like, I do not believe that the virtual environment should lead to a cosmetic appreciation of the project. Like, the real hero are the organs and the tissue blocks. And I do believe that right now it just exists on a random plane that can be improved. But I do not believe in adding more context to the environment until it leads to the understanding of the target user, which we like. I really like that you can see nothing else and you focus just on the organs right now. I really like that about our setting right now. And
Yeah, because you don't want the environment to detract from the purpose of the actual application.
And just adding on to adding a point to what we were discussing earlier about simulations, I really think that where the virtual reality would shine over like cadaver-based learning and things like would be creating simulations. So big part of a medical practitioner's learning is observing in the OT and seeing different cases and identifying and diagnosing those cases. So like the x-rays, you order them in sections. All the scans are in sections and you specify the resolution and sometimes even the color profile. So when you open the body, you don't always get to see that what's actually there unless a case presents to you. And the cadavers in the medical institutions do not always have those cases present to you. In virtual reality, you can embed that kind of problem or a tissue or a cancerous block inside the body and really show them like, okay, this is how it would look like. And that would be an example of accelerated learning, which they normally have to do like a residency for years to see those array of cases. And I think that's where virtual reality would really shine.
That is another good point. Because there's a fine line between, I think, simulation and illustration. You know, you could, for example, straightforwardly illustrate different types of tumors, for example.
Yeah.
Simulation, that's where it becomes really interesting. Because then, you would actually have to build like a simulation engine with different parameters. That's where it becomes really fascinating. Probably also pretty terrifying, I would imagine, if you put that in VR. All right, I think we are nearing the top of the hour here. Okay. So I would just kind of like everybody to say like your wish for the next year of organ gallery development. And Naval, why don't you start?
Okay, being a UX designer, I really want like the experience to navigate through these organs. Like right now, if you guys saw, we have like an app drawer, like a check mark where you can select which organs we want to display. I wish we can polish that more and like it's like really seamless to go from one organ to another. That's one of my wishes.
My wish for the organ gallery would be being able to visualize the organs on a cell per cell basis, like a cell distribution. So like a complete map. If there's a kidney, like how we got to see every 1 in 40,000 cell, I want to be able to visualize every single cell if it were possible by the hardware by then.
I guess my dream is to just see more unique and interesting ways for us to interact and play with the map and the organ gallery with these controllers, finding ways to compare, contrast, interact with, and broaden the understanding.
So for me, in terms of what's next for organ gallery, I would say maybe some sort of data, not in just way where you can interact, but maybe explaining or giving few insights about that particular organ to it. That would be something which will be really awesome for a person who won't be or who isn't from a biological background and wouldn't be like quite new to it. Okay, like what exactly this organ does. So it would be better if we could add some functioning to it.
Like organ trivia.
Yeah.
Okay, like the trivia we had earlier in the stream. Catherine, what's your wish?
I think building off of what Shefali said, so just for some background, an idea that we've been playing around with for a while is having like a voice guide, essentially like a disembodied voice that kind of guides users throughout the application. Because right now there's not as much like user instruction or guidance as there could be for navigation and stuff. And so I think it would be really cool to have that like little character, I guess, like an NPC type thing, guide users through it. And then that could be one way to deliver, the facts or the trivia about the organs. So yeah, that would be cool.
You just introduced Wispy to the world.
Yes.
Do you want to say a few words about Wispy and what we're envisioning for Wispy?
So Wispy is that's just like the name that we've given it, but right now it's like a little fluttering thing. It's not like an actual character. So it is a disembodied voice as of right now. It's just like this little thing that flutters around the screen, but there would be a voice that goes along with it. Right now that voice is me, but hopefully we'll get an actual voice actor for it, and that would be really cool. So yeah. It would just like welcome users to the application, introduce them to the controls, introduce them to the features, stuff like that.
Yeah, we took inspiration for it from, if you ever played Legend of Zelda, from Navi, flying around, pointing at objects in the environment, etc., etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Listen. All right. My wish is, I wish I could forever work with these amazing individuals here. And bring the organ gallery out as a full-fledged application realistically over the next year. I would love to work on this organ gallery and get the feedback from experts, organ experts, biological experts, essentially the kind of users that we're developing this application for, and to get our optimum, the optimum kind of feedback, so that we can really focus and hone in on what features we should further implement. We're at a point where there are many, many, many different types of features that we could implement. We certainly have all of the tech at our hands, but of course, people are always limited. So we need to really focus on, with the limited hours that we have, what features do we want to implement to support which types of use cases. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So let's go over here to the rest. We invite you to become a tester. We're going to release version 0.6 of the organ gallery here very soon. Here are GitHub issues where you're all welcome to submit issues. If you do want to be a tester, if you do have an Oculus Quest 2, which I assume some of you do, please contact me under the email address that's being listed here. And hey, Devin, can we maybe, could you put my, are you on Zoom right now? Could you please put my email at, oh wait, never mind. Okay, never mind. I'm getting confused. All right. Here is my my email address. Please contact me for if you want to become a tester. All right, wonderful. Thanks everybody, and happy weekend.